We're EarthForce. We are a national nonprofit and the home of environmental action civics. In field chats, you'll hear research-based, actionable tips and inspiring stories of youth-adult partnerships that empower young people to become environmental decision makers. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Field Chats, Environmental Action Civics Essentials, brought to you by EarthForce. I'm Vince Meldrum. I'm the CEO of EarthForce, and I'm joined today by Ace Parsi, formerly of iCivics and the National Service Learning Partnership and a bunch of other places. And I've known Ace for a couple of days now, like 25 years or something. And so, but now Ace is, yeah, it's been a minute, as the kids say. But now Ace is a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives to represent West Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. Welcome, Ace.
Good to see you, old friend.
Can you tell us a little bit
my beard is gray,
yourself?
so I can't really use that joke much anymore.
No, we're trying to get beyond that. But tell us a little bit more about your background. What you've been doing.
So I'm a first generation immigrant. So I lived until I was 8.5 in Iran, and so it's particularly important right now. Well, it would be regardless, but my youngest memories are of going to the one windowless room in the apartment because there was bombings happening. And so, I say that I know what it's like when people are good and their government's not, and when people desperately want to have a voice in the decisions that affect them and they don't have it, and when government's the greatest source of injustice in people's lives. And so I increasingly experienced that reality, that this was the Iranian reality that we fled, but now is increasingly becoming like the West Virginian reality and the American reality. And so that's why I decided to leave a job that I loved and do this, what I've called my year-long love letter to American democracy.
That's fantastic. As we've been doing a series of episodes on Field Chats that are more about kind of democracy and social studies and what we call environmental action civics, but you've known as Action Civics. And maybe since you started deep and dark a little bit, maybe we'll start there too. And so if you were to say redesign civic rights so as to make it the best possible scenario, what would you do? And what would you keep from what we have, and what would you?
You mean for young people or for all people?
Just for all people, right? What things would be important? Would age or knowledge, or what would be the things that matter most?
I think that when one of the things that really got me upset when I was in the iCivics civics education space is looking at polls where you would ask older World War II generations, how important is it to live in a democracy? And they would say 10 out of 10, no doubt. Yeah. And you would ask younger people and they would be like, I could give it up in this sort of way. So I'm a pretty nuanced person. I don't think that there's one magical pill to be able to fix this. Otherwise I would be taking it. I think that there's a variety of these things in terms of money, people's feeling that their elected officials are actually listening to them, like ours never does a open forum town hall, and showing people if this is the type of democracy that we should expect and demand. I think the one thing that gives me hope in all this is my wife and I named our daughter Ella after Miss Ella Baker, and I'm reminded of the American Civil Rights Movement and how little faith. The cause for how little faith that movement would have had and how much cause they would have had to give up. You think about the lynching of Emmett Till and the people that did it, confessing to it and getting off in that sort of way. And still they chose hope. And so I think that I would ask young people, I know I'm not going to be Pollyannish and tell you a system is something that it's not, but to still at the end of the day, choose hope and continue to build that positive system.
I think that's an amazing message for sure. It's certainly one that's timely for right now, for heaven's sakes. And I think I live in Virginia, not West Virginia, so I feel like I have a
We're
little
the better
more.
Virginia.
I don't know about that, but
The
I feel
best
like we have
Virginia.
a little bit more input into how it's working. But I want to shift your focus for a second
Hmm.
from that and the challenges that young people face and that. And you and I have worked in the kind of 21st century learning, deeper
Yeah.
learning space, for a very long time.
Hmm.
And as you reflect back on what you learned from all of that, what would you suggest to educators, to people that are trying to raise or to educate that generation of young people that feel disconnected from the system or feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if democracy is the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I swear to God, we don't need another study that highlights what really works because we've had it, like education for life
Amen
and
to that,
work,
man.
all those sorts of we have abundance of it. It's the promotion of a transfer of learning. So take learning from one context and apply it to other. And God, is that more necessary today? It was necessary before AI, but now even more so. Let me say something like rigor, relevance, and relationships always worked. Like that's just worked. And so like focus on that sort of reality right now and double down on it and give young people a sense of, you know, that they have some autonomy in their learning, yes, but there's also a larger purpose to their learning and that they can like develop skills and develop a certain set of mastery as they get up this. But rigor, relevance, and relationships ultimately is that thing and being able to apply learning to real situations, which is why Earth Force's model and environmental action civics is so powerful because it gives that is what it is. That's what ultimately it provides in that.
Yeah, I've been the last little while, and I think I said this on the last field chats that I was on. I've been going back and reading like Madison and Jefferson and Tocqueville and stuff.
You
And
would.
I know
That's
I'm
what I
a
like
little
about you.
nerd about that.
If anything.
Yeah. But one of the things that Tocqueville talks about is he talks about the fact that there wasn't like a civic education class, right? The class was your neighbor needed to build a barn,
Yeah.
right? Or you needed a bridge down the
Yeah.
road. I mean, I hate to be coy, about that, but
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
lesson, and everybody participated in that way. And it
Yeah.
feels like education has tried to shield itself from that in some way.
100%. I mean, there's a few things that affect this whole conversation. One is, you know, we are infinitely more connected than we used to be, but infinitely more lonely. So like let's play with that reality that people are lonely because now, say like I'm a trans young person who likes Dungeons and Dragons. I don't have to talk to my neighbor. I can find that person that's that. So there's less impulse and less need to connect across divides than there has ever been in that. And still, because we don't have those in-person connections, we feel infinitely more lonely than we did. So I think that is a reality. I think that the other reality of it that's really problematic is that, you know, if public schools, public education as an institution is increasingly under attack. Ultimately, I think at the top of it, that's what's happening is that like we had this sort of unspoken contract with our educators that I'm going to send the most precious human being in my life into a building full of strangers, and I know that you'll take care of them. And so they have inflamed this sort of through these culture wars, this distrust of that. And so what that means is that for a civics education, for a basic full comprehensive education, more and more teachers and school leaders and administrators and school board members are leaning away from getting young people to engage with each other or engage with anything of substance because they don't want to get a tweet or something that they are somehow indoctrinating young people. Uh, those are fundamental problems that we have to address is that reality of what is real, what is true and human in terms of our relationships, specifically with technology, and what is the fundamental purpose of education and how do we live it out?
Yeah, I think that kind of slides into the next question that I want to ask you is, as you look back at your years of doing this and your perspective from running for office, you know,
Yeah.
what are the policy levers, or what are just the levers in a community that we can use to kind of return the civic sense to education and to the classroom, and and so on and so forth? What do you see as those places?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I just released the one pager a little bit ago on my views on public education. I really think about it actually like the institution, if we put it onto like a Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? There, there are some existential issues that public education is facing, right? So I think there's a number of these different things. One, and there's not like, because public education has always been this weird area of policy that the teacher can close the door of the classroom and become the king or queen of their little fiefdom, and then there's the principal, and then there's at the principal level, there's other school administrators, there's district administrators, district school boards, state legislatures, state boards of education, national decision makers, and Congress, and all these. There's many different on ramps for that level of engagement, and I say like pull on all of them. Whichever one you're closest to, pull the hell out of that one. Advocate for public education as an institution that is the very cornerstone of our constitutional democracy. So that's the exit that we can't like go into the high Tootin idea, not Tootin, fluent ideas. High ideas. Without addressing those existential issues. But then I think when you get into the actual core of it, I think that one of the reasons some of you may know this, be familiar with it, or some of you may not, the Educating for American Democracy roadmap, the thing that I loved about it was that it focused on inquiry. I think that, you can have a right-leaning answer to a strong inquiry. You can have a left, you can have a libertarian, so focus on inquiry and bringing in primary sources and drawing on students' experiences. I think that like any parent, like when you look at actually the polls, the real polls on it, like parents don't have any problem with, giving students a variety of different viewpoints. Their fear, and I think it's been unfairly projected on school teachers, is that you're indoctrinating my child, right? And so if we get past that and we say, no, this is here's a question that we're getting, and we're getting our students to bring in their sources to back up that question, their answers to that question, and we're giving them the skills to do that, I think that would make a real. And then I do think that we need to break the walls between school and community. I think that it makes, like, honestly, to get beyond the reality that increasingly education has become a private good, I think that this is something that we need to do in K-12 and higher education, of leveraging education, publicly funded education, to have public benefit to the communities and in partnership with the community, so that it's not all falling on that teacher.
Do you think we've lost the sense of public benefit of education, and why we want to do that? Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. You taking your time out. I know you got a busy schedule today, and it's a hectic world out there. So thanks a bunch, and thanks for all the hard work that you've done over the years and now as well. So thanks. And
thank you for your for being such a good friend all these years, for living out a positive mission and being one of the, I think, I've worked with a lot of different organizations in my previous role. Vince, Meldrum, and Earth First is one of the real ones. So please support and continue to follow and share and engage in their work.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, man.
Bye.